Hi Rock Dogs, Mr. P here. We today are looking at Trinity Rock and Pop Grade 2 songs, but this time the breakdown, the fills, the different grooves, the bits that are tricky that you need to practice and slow down. So that's what that's about. Make sure you look at me playing and performing the song, but then now this is the important bit, is breaking down the song. So the first thing is quite a tricky song. There's a 3-bar groove at the beginning with 2 fills in it. So that's actually quite a lot of students find this really difficult. So let's have a look at the groove. You have to start with a crash, and it's F for forte loud. So we're giving it some welly. We want a nice tight hi-hat. You know, we need to make sure we've got a nice tight hi-hat. So we hit the crash on the first beat. Bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, snare, 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 crash, crash, Coca-Cola coffee. So I'll count it now. Let's do it really slow. Count it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, Coca-Cola coffee. So that's a Coca-Cola coffee, the fill at the end. Now, on the 4th bar of the second beat, there is a crash written with a bass underneath it. We do not play that note. And the reason we don't play it, it's called a tied note. And this is where a lot of people make that mistake. A tied note is tied to the note, the previous note, and it holds on. So if you were playing a flute or a string, that note would be longer in its endurance. But obviously on a drum kit, we can't actually do that. We hit something and it will resonate to its own decrease in volume. So in the 4th bar, we go 1 and rest, Coca-Cola coffee. So you're only playing 2 crashes in bar 3 and bar 4, not 3. Okay, that's the first thing. So I've counted it out for you. You've got to sort of get practicing. If we look at it in the rhythm, it's coffee, 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 rest, Coca-Cola coffee. So bar 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3. Oh, I'm going to start that again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, Coca-Cola coffee. One of the things that people struggle with is actually the groove at bar 5. It's actually a really, really simple groove. So, but people get this wrong. You know, they think because they've played a 4-bar groove in the beginning of the song, they've got to play a 2-bar groove for some reason. So be careful of this. So let's have a look at that. It's a 1-bar groove. Bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, bass. Right? So let's count it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and coffee, tea and coffee, tea and that is your groove in a song. The other groove, actually, let's talking about grooves, is bar 17, which is on our groove sheet is exercise 16 again from song 2 had that groove in it as well, and it goes boom, stand, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and coffee, tea and coffee, tea and. So there is your 2 grooves on that first page. Bar 21, we have a fill. And you can see the accent marks above, so we have to do this quite loud. It's coffee, coffee, tea, rest. 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 So the bar before into that. rest. So don't forget the rest. A lot of the students end up playing that rest. Just count it as a rest and then carry on. Then we go to bar 22, which is similar to the beginning. It's another 3-bar groove with a fill at the end, but it's different. So it's bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, snare, coffee, 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 rest. So bar 25, you're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 is a rest. Or coffee, 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 rest. 24 and 25 together. Coffee, tea and coffee, 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 rest. And then you've got a first time bar. First time bar means we're only going to play it once. Okay, and you see the 1 above 26A, and it is a line, a horizontal line going across the top. That's saying that's the first time bar. And at the end of 29A, you've got the 2 dots and the 2 lines, that's the repeat mark, and you go back to bar 5. So remember that, because a lot of people forget to look at the mapping. That's what we call it, mapping on the music. Now a P, at bar 26A, means piano. Piano is soft, quiet. And 26, 27, 28, 29A, we have an F, forte, which is loud. And between those 2 dynamic markings is a crescendo. So this is where we have to start quietly and get louder. Now the groove, the snare, is playing the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, rest, 3, rest. Okay, so it's coffee, tea and 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 coffee, tea. Right. Okay, so that's how that first time bar goes. Goes back round again. When you get to 25, you play the same thing. And then you go to the second time, which is now on the ride. How do I know? The X is on the top line, that's the ride symbol. So that's similar to the beginning. Okay, it's a similar groove, but now we do crashes, quite a few crashes at the end. So here he goes. So it goes coffee, tea and 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 coffee, coffee, coffee. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll count it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, we've got that tie note on beat 4. We don't play it, remember? Like I explained it. So it's 26, 27, 28, 29, beat 4. We don't play because it's that tie, a little rope tying the note before. So that's Knock on Wood. That's the breakdown of it. Watch how I play it in the performance. See you soon, and hope you enjoy going through Knock on Wood. Cheers for now.